Generally calm people of Reddit, what made you lose your absolute shit that time? My seventh fucking trip to the DMV when trying to reinstate my license. Every single time they scrutinized my paperwork and always managed to find something wrong and would send me away to fix it. On the seventh trip they finally resorted to, "You have no proof that you ever had a license," despite my piles of paperwork showing my driving record, among other things. I refused to leave the seat and said, "You people are fucking monsters." A manager was called, we argue. He said he believed that I had a license, but there was just no proof, and he couldn't risk accepting my paperwork in case someone checked it. I said I refused to leave the seat until I knew exactly what was needed. Manager said, "Tell you what, I can contact last state I live in and could get a verification that I had a license there. It would take 3 minutes." That's when I yelled in the DMV, "Why wasn't that the first fucking thing you said?" Anyway, I got my license back. I had things all set up to play piano with a string quartet for a wedding ceremony in church. The grand piano was up front, near the couple, and the organ in the rear to be used later. When I entered the church, I found that the florist had placed a large vase of roses on the grand piano, using the sheet music for the string quartet underneath the vase to absorb water. Rarely do I lose my cool, but I did that time. Members of the string quartet told him in no uncertain terms where he could stick those roses, as they tried to salvage their soap music scores. I was always a really quiet kid, even as a toddler apparently, so one of the first times I remember losing my shit was when I got really tired of this third grader picking on me on the bus. I was in kindergarten and this kid kept popping his head over my seat and poking me. I timed it out and the next time he did I punched him straight in the nose, which he immediately started bleeding and crying. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently the kid's parents tried to get some disciplinary action against me. That was until they found out I wasn't the same age or older. They just didn't want to make a big stink out of their kid getting bitch slapped by a kindergartner. It was Halloween and I was sitting out the front of my house watching my sister take my niece, who was around for trick-or-treating. The people who lived above us, we lived in a maisonette, decided to shoot a firework at them. This is the only time I've lost my shit. Got them inside the house, made sure they were alright. Sister had only few non-serious burns on her arm and managed to shield my niece from the explosion. At that point I was just so angry, went up to their door and started banging on it and demanding they come out. They didn't answer, so I started trying to kick the door in. My mother and brother dragged me away and back inside to calm me down. Half an hour later the police arrived because the neighbors had called them about me. Luckily, after we explained what had actually happened, I didn't get any trouble. But neither did they. Sorry for it being poorly written. I'm not the best writer. My wife was due to give birth on a date I had a trial. I'm an attorney. The state's attorney office refused to consent to a continuance, insisting they were going to be ready for trial that day. The date comes. I go to the courthouse and find that the SAO doesn't have one of their witnesses and is asking for a continuance. Needless to say, I lost my shit arguing against them receiving such a continuance when they had failed to subpoena a witness, or make any effort to contact said witness, by their own admission. The judge, of course, allowed them to have a continuance. I swore I've never practiced in that court again. It's one known around here for being especially friendly to the prosecution, to the point of absurdity, and where the SAO is known to engage in constitutionally questionable evidentiary practices. My wife gave birth the next day, and I've never been back to the jurisdiction. The state ultimately dropped charges against my client because they didn't have a critical witness. When someone's kid at Golden Coral decided to put their hands in food containers and they did nothing about it. I'd been dealing with listening to my dad and his ex-girlfriend have screaming matches and occasionally getting dragged into it for like a year. They started again one evening and she addressed me, demanding me to answer something or another to fuel her argument against my dad. I was just trying to play a game at the time and I just kinda snapped and screamed, I don't know and I don't care and I'm tired of your fighting. It wasn't much, but I've never raised my voice ever, and I think it kinda just stunned them both into silence. She walked out of the house, lol. When they brought the third sales manager in, 4 hours into my 90-minute timeshare presentation. This guy at work was cleaning out the work break room. Basically, he was throwing out people's personal belongings. So, I see my new coffee mug I bought specially for work in the trash and lost my damn mind. I started yelling at him that what he was doing was morally wrong and it's not his stuff to throw out. I went to my HR manager and complained to him about the principle of one thing. I took all of the coffee mugs in the trash out and washed them. The good thing is, if you are a calm person 99% of the time, people are most likely to listen to you in the 1% of moments you lose it. When my ex-wife's stepbrother told us the story about how he killed his neighbor's cat for fun, and then lied to his neighbor about having not seen it. My friend, who is usually a chill person, had some girl make fun of her brother who was killed, and she ended up beating the shit out of her, smashing her face into the wall and getting kicked out of our school for it. As a junior developer, I spent 3 weeks trying to fix a system that made custom PDFs of financial records from an HTML template and a handful of JSON in C#. And B, I don't know how to write C#. Alone, as by bizarre confluence of circumstances, the rest of my team was absent the entire time. I got to the end of it, battered, bruised, half insane from stress, but still calm and smiling. Not least because I had somehow pulled it off. And then the product owner asked me how I'd implemented support for multiple signatures using the system simultaneously. There was no mention of that in any of the tickets. Not anywhere. I must have read every one of those tickets 100 times. I was sure of it. So I'd spent 3 weeks building something very impressive out of a pile of broken garbage. And then, with hours left on the clock, I found out that what I built, while impressive, was not what the customer wanted. All because the PO can't write a ticket, and never deemed to check up on my progress. I lost my shit. Emails were written, some by me, some by supervisors from different sections of the business, defending me. The PO was fired unceremoniously. It was her third strike for fucking up, and new policies were put into place to prevent this from ever happening ever again. Overnight, I literally became the precautionary tale for anyone wanting to break from protocol. Back when I was working retail, I was manning the return desk when this woman comes in to return 2 totes full of clearance clothes. She wants to rebuy them all since clearance stuff was not cheaper. That's against the rules and I explain why, but per usual, she gets a manager and the manager caves. Since she bought this stuff on 3 different receipts and mixed them all up, this transaction is fixing to take 30 minutes at least. And I am frustrated but hiding it well. 15 minutes in, I hear some commotion off to the side. I turn my head and see that this woman's 5 or so completely unsupervised kids have piled onto a flat cart and are pushing it around. I don't know why it set me off so bad, but I pointed and yelled at them, raising my voice for the first and last time during my 10-year stint. The entire place fell silent and the customer was so mad at her kids that she took her stuff and left. A couple co-workers said seeing me get angry was really unsettling, a blessing/curse that comes with being the quiet one, I guess. Another unit lied to me about the condition a patient was in. I went into the supply room and screamed to vent at another nurse. Poor girl remains the only person at work to ever see me lose my shit. A kid beat me on the chest in kindergarten. I waited till after nap time to run him over with my tricycle. This guy broke all of my markers back in middle school. I told the teacher and got him publicly embarrassed. But it wasn't over. I was holding my trumpet and he kept messing with my hair at a concert and just kept touching me. I've always been known as never being angry, but he did it again in a room without a teacher. I grabbed his leg when he kicked me and lifted it up, throwing him down. He never messed with me after that.